I did get one. I had one person ask me, "Why is your countdown timer so long?" And I said, "Well, it just gives everyone 5 minutes. They see that we're live and know that we're going to start in 5 minutes." I said, "That's all there is to it."
That's
Could
funny.
it be shorter? And I was like, "Sure, join 2 minutes later." It's
Take
like
your
I
time getting there.
yeah, I was like, I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. It seems like a pretty low key complaint. So this mug, if he shows up today in chat, this mug is for Alan Middleton.
Alan Middleton.
I summon thee. He he asked for one and he helped us out at the
Couple
drop of
times.
a hat. Well, only once. One time we wanted him on. The second time
Uh,
was a snowstorm hit Louisiana.
that's right. Well, hey, Alan Middleton may be here. That may be his comment right there because I just saw that
Oh
he loved the video.
man,
Alan Middleton.
Alan, you are here, and I will personally drive this down to Texas to you. This is the first ever white and black behind the beards mug, custom made, autographed by me on the bottom, which actually lowers the value of the mug.
I guess I should probably take our banner off here, huh? Since it's not time to sign off just yet.
It's probably a good thing.
Although it's never a bad time to encourage people to not grow weary in doing good, right?
That's true. I do like the I do like the logo in the circle. It's a good idea.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Where are you right now? I am at my parents' house in Oregon. Is where I'm at right now. We took a 10-day vacation to reset our hearts, reset our minds, get a refocus. Then we're flying down tomorrow to Kansas and driving to Texas on Thursday. And we are closing on our house on Friday. And my beautiful wife called and made sure that we would have internet on Friday as well, which is the lifeblood of any house nowadays is
I,
having internet.
nowadays, it is. Man, it is amazing how much life has completely morphed um, into. Like when the internet goes out, I am amazed at how much we cannot do in our
Mm-hmm.
house, even.
Or like, yeah, so like my in-laws' internet just went out for like an hour and a half. And I was like, well, I guess I can. Well, I can't do that. Well, I guess I'll do. Well, I guess I can't do that. And it was just like, I don't know what to do with myself.
Yeah, so
Gotta wait on that cuckoo.
I know we have a DVD player and
Mm-hmm.
we have DVDs. But when it's like, hey, if we want to watch a movie together, most everything we do is streaming.
Mm-hmm.
Either streaming services, our TV is streaming, our DVR is all streaming. So
Right?
everything is internet relies on the internet, and even our phone service at the house, we rely on we rely on dogs to keep us awake and keep us on our toes. Now we rely on the internet to uh, bolster our cell connection because we don't get very good reception at the house. So we're pretty shut down if the internet goes out.
No joke. It's wild. Man, I did not expect Alan to be here today. That's so funny. I expected him to watch it later and be like, hey, that's my mug.
Yeah.
Good man.
Till we're all growing a beard. A man's face should never be bare. We just want some facial hair. We're anticipating, yeah, everyone's waiting for a beard.
Hey, good morning, everybody. This is Behind the Beards. And here on Behind the Beards, we pull the curtain back, take a look behind the scenes, and try to reveal the things that you need to know about your ministers and your ministry leaders. I'm Joshua Fowler, a preaching minister in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. And my partner here on the other side of the screen is Aaron Partlow. And Aaron is a youth minister in... Are you officially in Longview, Texas now?
I officially have been working remotely for the Pine Tree Church of Christ in Longview, Texas. You're right.
Excellent. Not in Longview yet, right?
Not in Longview yet. Thursday, we will be down in Longview.
Very good. Making the trek from Oregon.
Yeah.
To Longview. That's a haul.
Not really, but yeah. We're going to fly to Kansas and then drive to Longview.
I see. Well, that's good. Well, I am halfway toward my vaccination. I was on the wait list for the COVID vaccine as a minister, being in and out of the hospitals.
Yeah, that's cool. So, I haven't even gotten...
Well, they put us on a wait list, and then at the end of the day, sometimes they'll have like a few vaccines left over that they have to use so many, and once they're out, they can't go back in. So they've called me a couple times, and yesterday I was close enough to be able to get down to Baton Rouge Mid-City, and a little sore, but I'm feeling pretty good.
Which one did you get, Pfizer or Moderna?
No, Pfizer. Yep, Pfizer. And I got a little button and a little pin that said, I got the COVID vaccine.
I got the COVID
yeah,
vaccine.
I'm not wearing it. But yeah, that's kind of cool, kind of interesting. Like I was in and out of there in like 5 minutes.
Oh, sure.
It was kind of crazy. But I guess that's going to be the it will make it easier for us to travel to see Dustin when we get a chance to, who is overseas. He's in Japan, and they have a really, really tight security with that stuff. So,
yeah, they do.
Being vaccinated will make it easier for us to be able to get over and see him without having to quarantine him. I don't know what is going on in the house over there, but it's coming down, man.
It is. It's fine. Everything's fine.
Everything's fine. Everything's fine. I promise.
I was in Japan when swine flu broke out. And I remember I got there a day before they shut everything down. And I remember, I slept on the plane. I slept through the landing. Softest landing I have ever experienced. I slept through the landing. And I wake up to see somebody walking up to me with a giant machine they're holding like this, and they look through it and it takes everyone's temperature, it just reads body signature heat, cool. And stuff like that, and it was crazy.
The swine flu. Yeah, I forgot you spent some time over in Japan. Bring back any ping pong paddles?
Yes, I brought back 2 double happiness paddles that I use. Those are the 2 ping pong paddles that I use all the time. There's the Iceman right there. The Iceman
that still stares me in the face every day when I sit at my desk. So,
some good times. I look forward to introducing a youth group to my ping pong skills.
Hey, you have a whole new group of people at your disposal who you can kind of rope into thinking you're just some
that's the best part,
dude, and then you can whip out the English on them. So
I'm gonna actually pretend that I'm really bad and then set up a tournament and crush them all.
Crush your dreams.
Kind of like I might do it
Best
with
begins.
ping pong and Super Smash, and be like, "All right, if you guys win both of these, then you can dunk me in a barrel of water. But if I win, you guys all have to read your Bible, and then I'll
That's right.
destroy them."
And then I'll destroy them. So I'm sure you remember sitting in the living room with Dylan, my youngest, who
Oh
was
yeah,
pretty good at Smash.
so
Him being
good.
so mad that this old guy just walked into our living room and he couldn't manhandle him.
That's right.
So
We put that through the test because we played a full tournament Smash, and there's like a ton of characters, and that's where like you pick a character and your opponent picks a character, and then that character's off the map, and then you pick characters again, and you can no longer pick characters that you like. We went through, we did it all. It was pretty crazy. It was pretty crazy. It was pretty fun, and he's pretty good for a kid.
So what does that have to for a kid? What does that have to do with what we're talking about today? Well, the truth is it has everything to do with it.
It does.
We're talking about how do you define success? What are you worth?
That's right.
And that to me is one of the. It's always been an issue for me, of where I find my value, of how I define my success. It has intensified of late, and I say of late in the last year, and we'll talk about some of those things that have created that for me, but the trappings of tracking success,
it's real, and it's real awkward in ministry. That's all. That's like the main portion. That's like all I'm going to add to this podcast is it's real awkward.
That's it. Well, as always on Behind the Beers, we want to remind you of something that is Galatians. No,
yeah, that's right. And we're closing it out. Thank you guys for being here.
So if anyone's listening and knows my story, I spent 12 years in the car business in the service department, and success was very tangible.
Yeah.
I knew if I was doing things right. I knew if I was on track. We had goals. We had benchmarks. They were very well defined. They were physical and they were fiscal. And I knew I needed so much money in sales and so much, or in labor, and so much money in parts. And I knew I needed that every day to get to where I needed to be at the end of the month. And so I knew what I was doing. And at the end of the month, I could look how I paired up with the other 7 guys on my drive to see how successful was I at this. I might have beaten my previous month, but was I 7th out of 7 on the totem pole, or was I kind of leading the charge in sales and stuff? So, very easy to determine if I am successful or not. And you get into ministry, and you have work to do, but God and the Spirit is the one that actually gives the increase, and you have no control over people's mindset or their spirituality or their ability to connect or their own growth. That is work that they do between them and God. You're just there to provide an avenue for them to do that.
Right.
And someone says, "Are you good at what you do?" You're like, "Well, I think so." And then they say, "How do you know?" I don't know, because it's so hard to track it. And so we do come up with ways of tracking it. But I don't know that they're healthy, because the only way we have to really track our success is how big is your youth group? How big is your church?
Right.
Are they growing numerically? And it's easy to kind of get wrapped up in that.
Right. And I think in the past we have had too much of a focus on that type of growth. Man, I don't know. I just don't know that it's. I have a really hard time with that, because I don't know that it is always. I was trying to find a meme that I found this last week that really goes with this, and I can't find it. Alan would know where it is. Alan's the Christian meme master, and it said, the first box it said is for considered a lot. And then the second one, it said,
Yes.
he saw that and it said, well, depends on what you're talking about. And the third one said, for showing up to youth group, not so much. 4 kids you left at a rest stop on a mission trip, yes.
That's too much.
And it's like made me laugh, because that's like every youth minister's fear is to leave kids somewhere. But back to what we were talking about, is it about, and I love when you have this conversation that everyone says, well, it's not about numbers, right? This isn't a numbers thing. But somewhere in the back of our head, it is a numbers thing. And is it about quantity or is it about quality? Mm-hmm. And I think that's where I think you have to have both. And I think we have some ups and I think we have some downs. And I think we have quantity and we have quality down here. And we need to be right in the middle. But I think actually we do this quite often. And I think pre-COVID, and I'm just using COVID as a date. I'm not using it as because we went through a pandemic. But I think pre-COVID, we were focused, at least me in the Central Church of Christ, I was focused on quantity. Oh, man, was I focused on quantity. Retreats, mission trips, everything was about getting everybody there. It wasn't until I left Central and I received a very nice letter from one of my previous teens that I realized that I needed to have more of a focus on quality. And it made me realize of what they received and what they got out of youth group was all of these major points that I wanted them to get to become disciples.
Right.
Does that make sense?
It actually does make sense.
So how do you quantify? How do you measure discipleships? Oh, well, how many disciples do you have?
Right. Right. If you have more than 12, that's too many. If you have less, that's not enough. Steve says, cynically, of course, growing spiritually doesn't count, right? And we know that it counts, but how do I quantify spiritual growth? Mm-hmm. I can't quantify spiritual growth. I can't put a number on that. I can put a number on if my youth group is growing, because I know last week I had 12 and this week I had 13. A year ago at this time I had 40 on the roll, and now I have 50 on the roll, so I can see that growth. So I think the key is to get us to a mindset where we are, if we are focusing on the spiritual growth of our kids, of our adults, of our church, then the assumption is that naturally we're going to see an increase in the people who are there. But that's not promised. It's not a given. It's not a guarantee.
And that doesn't mean things are going to be better.
No, that's right.
Or
easier.
Because I don't know. Like I really like size isn't everything. Because you really need. I hate this metaphor, right? It's not a metaphor. I hate the saying, the 80-20 saying, where you have 20% of the people doing 80% of the work. And I think that is so disgusting and so wrong. And I think that right there, to me, most of the time points out that whole idea of man, we have to do better as people, as church leaders and as churches, because of that idea of 20% of the people are doing 80% of the work, and that we need to, I don't know, there's got to be a change in people's hearts to want to serve God more and better. And how do we
ask the question, why is 20% of the people doing 80% of the work? Is it because only 20% of the people are willing to work?
Yeah,
or is
that's true.
Because sometimes it's because the 20% of the people that are doing the work don't really want to give it up.
Or even more, go even further. I know you're going to finish that thought, so hold on to it. Or because we haven't asked if somebody else wants to do the work.
Right. Of asking, of open shoulder. And like I had this issue recently, someone came to me and said, "Hey, here's something that we need to do," and I said, "That is awesome.
Right.
You do that, and I will be there for you." And then they did it, and you know what? It is not the way I would have done it. In my mind, it was so disorganized, and it could have been done so much differently and so much better. But that's just in my mind, because it's not the way I would have done it. And I had to keep coming back to saying, "Hey, you delegated this to someone, and you said you would be there. You no longer get an input in how it's done. Your
Right.
responsibility is now to show up and to support and to be that cheerleader. And next time someone volunteers to do something, do the same thing. Don't get this in your mind that, oh no, I'm going to take it up and I'm going to, no, let people do the work. Let people invest in that way, and then you show up and you be that cheerleader and you be that participant that's right there for them, doing everything in the wings.
For sure.
Because that gives us this piece of accountability that we're not often willing to ask for or relinquish to other people. And so sometimes it's because, hey, we're a little lazy. But sometimes it's because people who are working aren't willing to turn some of those things over. And that's a part of growth on both sides. I have to grow to be able to turn some of that control over, and other people need to grow to be willing to step in and take it over.
Yeah.
And again,
Isn't that funny?
it is funny.
Hilarious.
One of the things that's made it really hard for me lately is we're all online. And here's the thing about being online. Guess what they're doing with your online activity?
Showing you.
How many views?
Mm-hmm.
How many I have 5 viewers, 1 like and 1 love on this video right now. And I can be able to go back later today and see how many people have viewed. I know how many people viewed it for 10 seconds, 30 seconds, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. I can tell you when they tuned in, when they tuned out. I do that with worship. I can do that with worship. And, so you have all of these analytics. And what they do is they pair you up and they pair you against all the other people that are doing the same thing you are doing. And as you scroll through the feed, you can see, man, my podcast got 300 views, but so-and-so's got like 700 and it's only been up for an hour and a half. What am I doing wrong? How do I get to this point? And one of the biggest traps that we fall into when we start to gauge our success in the way that in ministry, the way the world views success, is we find ourselves trying to be something or someone that we haven't been created or called to be. And I was having this conversation with some other Christian podcasters, and they were talking about, driving traffic. And, I came up with this comment, and as I was saying it, I was like, man, I don't know where this is coming from, but it's awesome, and I need to remember it and write it down. Because as we were talking about this, I said, look, here's the thing, and here's the thing that we need to be cautious of, because here's where this definition of success and worth and value leads us to. If I'm trying to be something God hasn't called me to be, I can get there, and I can be successful in the world's eyes. But if I have to step over the people whom God has placed in my path to serve in order to serve someone else that he's called someone else to serve, I've abandoned this responsibility that lies in front of me. And yeah, it might only be 7 people, and there might be 700 sitting over there, but God has placed these 7 people in my path. And if I completely walk past them, step over them to get to someone else, I've abandoned this responsibility that God has given me to work in this area. And so for me, that's the greatest trapping of success, is if I'm defining success by the world's standards, it is so easy to overlook what God has called me to do in this space and in this moment.
Right? It's such a good distraction.
Yeah.
It is. And so I always struggle when it's about like tracking tracking success in your ministry. What is success in youth ministry? Just because of those things, like how do you track, spiritual disciplines? How do you track discipleship? How do you track, So, and I do think there are ways. I think there are ways. Like I definitely, as a youth minister, you can tell, where your youth group's at spiritually. I know where I want them to be. I can remember times where I would sit and I would think, man, if a new kid walked into our youth group would ignore that kid. And like I would think that, and I would know that. And so this year, I want to expand upon our idea and what our kids really think outreach is. What do they really think warm and welcoming is? When we talk about being a family, what does that truly look like and mean? And so by the end of the year, if a new kid walked in on a Sunday morning, our teenagers would swarm them with love and praise and make them really feel at home. And so, those are the kind of goals that I kind of set for like a youth group. I do kind of analyze, and Lauren and I, my wife, does a lot of youth ministry with me. And so sometimes we'll sit down and we'll chat about this. And we usually do this around, December or even earlier in November to kind of decide, hey, what are some of the things that our youth group really needs to grow in? Where has our shift been? So I don't know if that's measuring success, but that's definitely kind of an area, kind of a focus that I look at that.
You have to find ways. You have to find benchmarks, right? Because
somehow
we have to be able to say, am I doing things right? And even though, we know what Stephen says here to be true, we're called to be seed sowers, not inspectors. God does that inspection. God brings that increase. We're called to do work, and it's a very specific kind of work.
Well, it's even more scary if you really think about it.
It is.
I'd rather be inspected by flawed humans than by a divine, perfect God.
So true. But I look at, and this is the way I've tried to reshape my understanding of what I define as success. It was really cool to see our youth group grow in Kansas when we were there. But for me, it wasn't so much about the numeric growth that came from other families coming in, which we had something to do with, but, not a whole lot. They were coming in for work. We provided a place for them to land, which was super important to do in the kingdom. Mm-hmm. But it's not like we were going out and, evangelizing, knocking doors, really reclaiming people from the world. But what we were doing was important. The value that I found was in the percentage of the people who had always been on the roll who were becoming more involved. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so if you have 700 people on your roll and you only have 300 people showing up, some people may go, you have 300 people showing up, man, that's great. But there's 400 here who identify themselves with you, but who aren't showing up. So what if we can begin to bridge this gap between those who identify with your body but aren't present, and those who are actually here? Because it's not about the number. For me, I look at the percentage. So if I have 15 kids on my roster from the church whose families go here, and I have 2 of them that are coming, but in a year there's now 10 of those 15 that are coming, that's still not a huge number of people in my mind. But you look at how many more people are becoming more engaged because you're providing a space for them to grow and to mature.
Right.
And so maybe for me, it's a healthier understanding of what it is to be in that place. And it's something measurable. Are people coming that weren't coming a year ago? Are they coming to 2 or 3 events where they used to come to 1? And finding those places where people will just engage a little more. And if they're not, if everybody's just completely staying the same, then maybe I need to reconsider some of the things that I'm doing.
Absolutely. And it's really funny. There's there's one part of this that always this always comes up to me every year, and I always wrestle with it, and I have to fight my own ego against it. Not my own eagle. That would be really cool. But my own ego. I'm saying a lot. I apologize. It is early in the morning for me, folks. These last 2 weeks, I've been getting up at 7:30, which I'm not a morning person to do this podcast. That's why it normally is 10 o'clock Central Time. So if you're like, man, Aaron just is not good at podcasting the last 2 weeks. I'm not good in the morning. This is why I'm not a morning person. But anyway, it's senior recognition night. Oh man, senior recognition night. That's like, if you are going into youth ministry, if you somehow stumbled across this podcast and you are going into youth ministry, don't mess up senior rec night.
Yeah, no doubt.
Just don't. Whatever you do, put all the focus you need to into it. Nothing else matters. Okay? Mission trip will take care of itself. Trust me. Don't mess up senior rec night. And my biggest struggle with senior rec night sometimes is that idea of the uninvolved. I've had it where, I didn't even know this kid went to our church, and they showed up for senior rec night, with a poster and with everything. And I was like, "Who are you? Hi, I'm Aaron." I've been
not
here for
really. 7 years.
I've been here for 7 years. Where have you been? Not really, but I mean. And I wrestle with that because, it's about celebrating them. I don't know, but it's really hard. But you have that super strong point that I want to echo that was so good about involvement. That's really great. And that's really great, Josh. Good job. But I totally agree. I think, I even think in my ministry, that might be something that I really try to, I hate not to keep a checklist, but to really have a better understanding of teens' involvement. I also struggle with that idea that that my kids need to go out and be ambassadors for Christ, and so I don't shame the ones who are doing sports or are doing musicals or band. But I try to send them out with that idea that, hey, you're an ambassador of Christ. And so you need to be using this gift to serve God, and using that in this capacity. And I try to, I guess I might put in a little bit extra effort to those kids to make sure that they are still getting spiritually fed. The 20% that I get to see them, since parents and families have that 80% to be able to see them. So anyway, but I was just thinking of that. That was good.
Well, thank you. I come up with so bad good every once in a while. No.
Every once in a while.
I try to think about, once you have a way of kind of measuring, not success, but progress. For me, that's really what it is. How do I measure progress?
Thanks, Bryce. I love you.
Bryce,
yeah.
Did I miss something? Man,
no, he texted me.
Oh, I see.
It's funny. It's personal.
There are these things that create value, that create worth, that create identity. And there are these little moments that are so easy to get past us. Right, because I tell you what I hear loud and clear is when I've messed up. When I've said something wrong, yeah. When I've had a misprint, even in the senior recognition, bulletin or article,
totally.
So you misspelled that person's name. And it's like, really? Well, I just copied and pasted it off of what they sent me, so maybe they misspelled their own name. I want to get defensive. I want to tell people about all the things that I'm doing. Or if you say something wrong in a sermon or in a lesson, or
that's not a real word,
right? And we hear that loudly, and it really weighs heavily on us because we have a high expectation for ourselves as well. But we have these little moments of praise that are frequently overlooked because the people who bring them aren't standing up, holding up your hand, calling you a champ, and making a big to-do. Sometimes it's just a comment like, I'm going to be thinking about that for a little while. You really gave me something that I need to go home and think about. I appreciate that lesson. That's not a big, huge accolade. There's no pomp. There's no circumstance. There's not a, dude, you are the best preacher I've ever heard in all of my life. It's just a little comment. But that little comment means that you've connected with someone in a way that has inspired them to go and think about something differently, or to re-inspect or to re-engage in a new way. And it's so easy to overlook. But when I get those moments, I try to remember them and say, hey, that's what it's about. That's why we do this thing. That's why we work. It's why we put in the hours. It's why we put in the study. It's why we invest to inspire people to think about doing life differently because of Jesus.
That's funny because mine is it's hilarious. That's funny because mine is when somebody says, I remember that lesson. I remember that retreat. I remember that from camp. Those are those moments that make it all worth to me. Whenever I don't have to dig it out of somebody, but they go, "Oh, you know what? I remember at camp that there was this lesson. I don't even care if they remember if it was me. That's not the point. But I remember at camp that lesson of so and so and about this, and I'll be like, whoa, when it comes up in a communion talk for me, or a small devotional that they had to put together, that's when I go, wow, they are listening, and that's a big deal.
I have a group of people, and I don't need them to be louder. I just need to recognize them more because they call me regularly. And Bryce mentions that it's frustrating how we're often quicker to criticize and encourage. And it's not just a church issue. You see it on social media. You see it in culture. Mm-hmm. You see it when you go out to eat. You see it everywhere. That, if you mess up my order, you're going to hear about it. But 99% of everything else you got right. I'm not going to tell you about the 99% you got right because I expect that of you. But the one little thing you did wrong, you're going to hear about that. That this culture of criticism is where we're at. And we need to be really cognizant that doesn't begin to consume the church. Mm-hmm. That we are people of encouragement. And there are great encouragers in the church. I have people who will comment every Sunday when they show up for worship. Here, miss you guys. We're almost ready to be back. This and this and this is going on, and we'll see you in a few weeks. They'll text me afterwards and say, man, that was a couple of really great lessons. I can't wait to see you again. Or they'll just call in the middle of the week and say, hi, I don't need anything. How are you? Just checking on you and your family and to see how the kids are doing. Those people are there, and they're working, and they're active. And we have to be better, not just as ministers, but as people, about both hearing those Barnabases that are in our lives.
Right, yeah.
And then taking that and being inspired to go do the same for others. Because if I take that encouragement and go, oh, now I feel encouraged and I can just go to work now, I guess that's okay. But a better thing is to say, man, that was really cool. I'm really glad they called. And now I'm going to go call someone else. Instead of just sitting back and waiting for everybody to call me, I'm going to go call someone else and just say, hi, how are you? I don't need anything. I'm just calling to check on you and see how things are going.
Just calling to check.
I just called to say I love you. That's right.
I think what something I've been thinking about over these last 39 minutes was where does our value come from? I guess for me, like my value comes that I serve God, and I serve God first, and that's where my value comes from. My worth and my identity is all in Christ. It's not in my ministry. It's not in how effective my ministry is this week or this year. Those things are important to me, and yeah, I look towards them. But my value and my worth and my identity comes from God and what God has called me to do, and I know what spiritual gifts God's given me, and I think the church is going to have swells of going up and going down. I think the good word is going to stick to some, and I could hit a home run knockout sermon or have a fantastic weekend, and 4 kids come forward, and want to give their life to Christ, or I could have the same exact weekend and the kids are on their cell phones the entire time. They're not plugged in, they're not engaged. And my value comes from living faithfully of what Christ and what God has called me to do. I think sometimes maybe as ministers we can get a little bit too caught up in these kind of things. We forget who we ultimately serve. And so I don't know. That was like bugging me to like just verbalize and just say that I serve God first, and this congregation supports me in doing that, and I'm thankful to that. And I work with them, but I serve God first, and that's where I'm called, and that's what I'm called to do, and that's what I believe. So I don't know.
No, in my scripture reading yesterday, I read this Psalm 31, and in Psalm 31,
yeah,
he says, "Be gracious to me, Lord, because I'm in distress. My eyes are worn out from frustration, and my whole being is well." And he goes through this just pity party. And then he says in verse 14, "But I trust in you, Lord, and I say, you are my God. The course of my life is in your power. Rescue me. Make your face shine on your servant. Save me by your faithful love." And that's kind of been the mantra. And you go through these Old Testament, and I think it's in Numbers, where you find the great song that we sing, "The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious." I just have to keep, reminding myself of just what you said. Look, I am a child of the King. I am his servant, and he is my God. And the only thing that matters is, does he receive glory and honor because of the things that I do and the way that I work? And if he is receiving glory and honor because of the work that I'm doing and the way that I'm living, then everything else is up to him. And his spirit will produce when his spirit is willing and ready to produce. And people respond to that when they're willing and ready to respond to that. But my job is to bring him glory and to make sure that everything I do points to the cross and says, that's my King, that's my God, that's my Savior. And in everything else, we'll figure it out along the way.
That's right.
So
do you have our behind the beard moments?
It's a race to get there.
It is. I don't know.
I don't know. Like for me, the behind.
I don't really
the beard
know
moment,
that there is one.
I think it is. I think it is. And I think
no, there isn't one.
There is one.
No,
and I think it is this. Your ministers, your ministry leaders are really torn and pressured to both be successful and define success. But at the same time, there's this other side which recognizes that we can't measure true success because it's really not up to us.
Right.
And walking that line of, I want to know that what I'm doing is good and fruitful, but I don't want to get wrapped up in the things the world defines as successful, but it's the only way we know how to measure things. So when you talk to us about growth, about success, about things going well, help us to be focused on what is most important. And what is most important is not that 150 people showed up to our barbecue.
Right.
What is most important is that the 150 people that showed up had a great time experiencing the community and the faithfulness of God through being with one another.
Mm-hmm.
What's not important is that only 4 kids showed up to go on this service project. The important thing is the 4 that did show up got a chance to show the love of Christ and the love of God to the people they were going to serve. Well, and there could have been 40, but there were 4, and you served those 4 and you showed them God's love.
And they built a community together, grew closer together. They did something special together, and that's powerful.
Yeah. I mean, so whether the group is small or the group is large, it's not about that. It's about what happens in the moment. And it's about how we are growing together and closer together. Right. And so as we talk about those things to get to that place where that's what we recognize about our gathering. It was a good day at Worship Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what do you mean by that? Was it good because an hour and a half after services, there's still people hanging around the parking lot talking?
Mm-hmm.
Or was it good because we had 15 people more there than we've had the previous few weeks? But 5 minutes after the service, the parking lot was empty. And so think about that, right? Bryce mentions this service project where it was, I think it was Tessa and my son, and then me and Bryce and Allison showed up to work on this lady's yard. I think that might have been it. But man,
when you have more chaperones than teenagers, that's always a good feeling.
Yeah, but you know what? We had a great time, and we did some good work, and we built some relationships and some memories that we'll always remember. And it's good stuff. So, remember that when we talk about success, look at the things that matter most, and look at the ways that God shows up in the little projects and the big projects, and in every little aspect of our community to one another.
Yeah.
That's what I think the Behind the Beards moment is.
I think so too. Nailed it. Knocked it out of the park. I'm awake now, so we can start the show.
Hi. Welcome to Behind the Beards.
Welcome. With that note, though, hey, we want to thank you guys for being here today. We also want to remind you of something that's really important to us, which is Galatians 6:9. Do not grow weary in doing good. Man, talk about what we were talking about today. I mean, this world is messy and this life is messy. So let's allow Christ to use you to do something different, something good in his name. I'm Aaron, and this is Josh, and we will see you next week at 10 o'clock Central Time, where I will be rejoicing in that time zone and here for the show next week on Behind the Beards.
Till we're all growing a beard. A man's face should never be bare. We just want some facial hair. We're anticipating, yeah, everyone's waiting for a beard.